Hi there, my name is Victor Carter, and I'm the VP of Professional Development for Grand Valley State University's PRSSA. And today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about public speaking. But first, a little bit about myself really quick. I used to work at Grand Valley State Speech Lab. And basically all we did there was help students with oral presentations, commencement speeches, and so on, really anything pertaining to public speaking. And one of the most common things students would say is, I hate public speaking. Now, public speaking is probably not my most favorite thing either, but it's a really good skill to have. But the reason people mostly hate it is because they feel super nervous and anxious before giving a presentation. And while there aren't many things to 100% overcome this, there are some tools and tactics you can use to kind of diminish those fears. But before we start to dive in, I want to emphasize that speech anxiety is 100% normal. Even after working at the Speech Lab for 3 years and taking a speech class, I even still feel super nervous before giving a presentation. But that being said, you can diminish those fears of speech anxiety and nervousness by one, being prepared. And going into being prepared has quite a few pillars, but today we're going to talk a little bit about formatting, attention getters, conclusions, and transitions. So I'll start with formatting. So essentially, you want to format your speech kind of like an essay, but it's going to be a little bit different when you deliver it. So like I said, similar to the essay, you would have an introduction, and then you would have a body paragraph, which contains 3 to 4 main points, depending on how long your speech is going to be. And then you're going to have a conclusion. And that's essentially how you would outline your most basic speech. And that's gonna vary depending on what kind of speech it is, whether it's an introduction or a persuasive and so on. But that's the simple template you want to carry. And so I've kind of outlined that format. I'm going to dive a little bit into the delivery elements. So the first thing you want to do is have an attention getter. And now there's 4 different types of attention getters. There's a quote, a statistic, a story, or a question. And you can use any 4 of those that you want, but try to find one that's interactive and relatable to your audience. But it keeps them engaged. And that's the most important part of any speech. And so now that I've talked about that attention getter, I'll dive into the conclusion. You might say that's a weird transition. Well, actually, the conclusion ties very closely in with the attention getter. And what I mean is you want to try to tie that last little statement in your conclusion in with your attention getter. So say you used a question in your attention getter. When it comes to your conclusion, you want to revisit that question, potentially answer it, or leave it up to the audience to see if they were able to get the answer to the question. And so that's the attention getter, the format, and the conclusion. The last thing I want to talk about is transitions. Now, this is very important when it comes to clarity in any type of speech or presentation, but transitions are essential when giving public speeches. So how you would do this is when you're moving between main points, it's important to reiterate the previous main point and then introduce a new main point. So an example of this is, now that I've talked about main point A, next I'm going to talk to you about main point B. And then after you talk about main point B, you'll be like, now that I've talked about main point A and B, lastly, I'm going to talk to you about main point C. And so what transitions do is they provide clarity to your audience so that they can follow along throughout the entire presentation. But that's really it. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the formatting, how to format a speech, how introductions and conclusions, attention getters, and so on, and how those work. And then we talked a little bit about transitions and how you can use those effectively. But last thing I really wanted to emphasize again is that nervousness is totally normal. And there's some other things you can do to diminish those fears, but really it comes down to just how prepared you are and how much you've practiced. But yeah, thanks for listening.